At 15, my mother locked eyes with me and spat, "I should have aborted you." Then my father pushed me. The wind howled around me that night, a relentless, biting cold that tore through my thin hoodie, while every house on the street glowed with festive warmth. It felt like the world was celebrating, but for me, it was just the beginning of a long, brutal winter. My name is Ethan, I'm 30 now, and I run a small sales operations company. People often assume I came from a privileged background because I carry myself with a certain confidence. But the truth? Most of what I learned about discipline and survival came from escaping my parents, not from being raised by them. I'm not sharing this for pity. I just need to finally lay out how things really were, because the picture people had of my family was a complete fabrication. Our home looked perfect from the outside. Robert, my dad, was a dentist who strutted around like he'd personally invented teeth. He'd correct people mid-sentence and lecture neighbors about their posture, convinced that any job outside of medicine was a waste of oxygen. Brenda, my mom, was a middle school teacher adored by parents. They called her Mrs. Davies, like she was royalty. She remembered every kid's name, acted sweet at school events, and pretended she had some natural gift for raising star students. And then there was Sophia, my older sister by 1 year, the indisputable golden child. Straight A's, science competitions, violin recitals, the whole package. People were saying she'd be a doctor before she even hit high school. Then there was me, Ethan, the one nobody ever bragged about. Inside that house, daily life was a meticulously choreographed performance. We had scheduled bathroom times, color-coded and taped to the hallway wall. Study hours were monitored with military precision. Finish early? You reviewed lesson plans. Tired? You were simply undisciplined. Hobbies were only permitted if they made us look impressive to relatives. Sophia got the violin because it sounded fancy. I got nothing. Holidays? We didn't celebrate them unless a camera was involved. Christmas decorations stayed boxed until Brenda needed something to post online or send to relatives. The second the photos were taken, everything went back into storage. Robert, meanwhile, spent most of his time bragging. At his clinic, he'd tell patients, "Sophia mastered algebra at 9. Or, "Brenda and I have very high standards for our children." When they asked about me, he'd just change the subject. Brenda had the same habit. I was 12 when Robert dragged me to his clinic's open house. He handed me a white coat that reeked of chemicals and ordered, "Stand next to me. Look interested." He introduced me to his staff like I was some future dental prodigy. When someone asked me what a curing light was, I shrugged. Robert's grip on my shoulder tightened, a painful squeeze. He leaned down, whispering, "Embarrass me again, and you'll regret it." He made me repeat the term and definition 3 times, right there in front of them. When patients came, he'd say, "My son will take over the practice one day," as if saying it enough would make it true. I just stood there, wishing I could disappear. Sophia got her own share of pressure, though people think the golden child has it easy. She didn't. One night, when she was in 8th grade, she brought home an A on a science test. I wasn't supposed to see anything, but I was sneaking downstairs for water and froze on the steps when I heard yelling. Brenda stood in the hallway, waving Sophia's paper like it was a crime report. Sophia kept saying, "It's still an A." But Brenda slapped her so hard Sophia stumbled backward into the wall. I covered my mouth, terrified they'd hear me breathing. Robert didn't console her. He just muttered, "Your relatives will notice the difference." That was their fear. Not Sophia's well-being, but the idea that someone might think the Davies weren't perfect. Sophia cried quietly while Brenda tore the test into pieces. "You made us look careless," she spat. Robert nodded, arms crossed, as if Sophia had personally attacked the family name. I backed up the stairs slowly, pretending I hadn't heard anything. If they treated Sophia like that for an A-, I knew exactly what they thought of me. Their love wasn't love. It was a performance, and we were just props. By middle school, Brenda decided my teachers weren't pushing me hard enough, so she took over my studying. She called it her teacher methods, but it was nothing like an actual classroom. She printed worksheets way above my level and sat across from me like she was judging a talent show. "Focus, Ethan," she'd say, tapping her nails on the table. Sophia would have finished this already. If I hesitated, she leaned closer. Answer. Why are you thinking so slow? When I got something wrong, she circled it 3 times in red, slid the paper back to me, and said, "Read it out loud slowly so you can hear how careless you sound." She paced behind my chair most days. I could feel her waiting for any mistake she could pounce on. If I asked for a break, she didn't even look at me. "Breaks are for students who show effort," she said. "You haven't earned that." Robert added his own routine. After dinner, when Sophia went upstairs, he did what he called inspections. He would take my notebooks, flip through pages with the same clinical expression he used for dental charts, and point out anything he considered sloppy. "This margin is uneven," he said one night. "Start over." "It's just a homework page," I whispered. "It reflects your mind," he replied. "Right now, it reflects a mess." During these inspections, he barely spoke, just made notes on a small pad, tapping his pencil each time he found something wrong. That tapping became something I dreaded. The punishment started getting physical. At first, Brenda would flick the back of my head when I zoned out. Then it turned into slaps. Quick, sharp, emotionless. If I froze on a question, she didn't wait. "Refocus," she'd say, hitting my cheek lightly but firmly. "Stop wasting my time." Robert handled what he called discipline reviews. They usually happened on Sundays. He'd shut the blinds, tell me to stand still, and use his belt without raising his voice. "This is for your improvement," he'd say every time. Remember that. I learned early that crying only made him say, "You're too sensitive. Toughen up." One day in 8th grade, I brought home a B on a math quiz. Brenda looked at it like it was a court summons. She handed it to Robert the moment he walked in the door. He held it between 2 fingers. "Explain." "I tried," I said. "I messed up on the last section." "That isn't an explanation," he replied. He placed the paper on the table. "Rewrite the entire chapter, every example, every problem, by morning." "That's like 20 pages," I said. He didn't blink. "Then you'd better start." I sat at my desk until the sun came up, hand cramping, eyes burning. I gave him the stack of papers before school. He flipped through 3 pages, nodded once, and said, "Better." Sophia noticed how out of it I was. Before we left for school, she quietly slipped a granola bar into my hoodie pocket. "You should eat something," she whispered. I didn't say anything back, but I appreciated it. Our parents loved using food as leverage. If I underperformed, dinner magically disappeared. The pressure on Sophia was getting worse, too. She'd check her homework like it was radioactive, terrified of making a mistake. I overheard her telling herself, "Don't mess up. Don't mess up," while erasing the same math line over and over. But Brenda still blamed me for Sophia's stress. "You're distracting her with your failures," she'd snap. "Stay away from her until you fix yourself." Sophia didn't protest. She just kept her eyes down. By 9th grade, something in me just shut off. I didn't decide to stop trying, it just happened. Every worksheet, every quiz, every lecture felt like noise. I went through my days like I was underwater. Teachers asked if I was okay, but they didn't push it. Most of them trusted Brenda too much. If I slipped in class, they'd say, "Your mom mentioned you've been rebellious lately," and move on. I wasn't rebellious. I was just tired. The day everything at school blew up started in math class. I was supposed to be working on practice problems, but instead, I was drawing little cartoons in the margins of my notebook. It was the only thing that made me feel normal for a few seconds. My teacher walked by, took my notebook, and sighed. "Ethan, again?" She called home. That was a mistake. 20 minutes later, the classroom door flew open. Brenda charged inside, still wearing her school ID badge, hair pulled back aggressively. She didn't even knock. "Where is he?" she snapped. The teacher pointed at me slowly, unsure what was happening. Brenda grabbed my backpack, yanked my arm, and dragged me out of the classroom. Students stared. A few whispered in the hallway. She spun around. "What is wrong with you?" she yelled. "Drawing during class?" I finished the first. "Shut up," she said. "Do you enjoy embarrassing me?" A teacher nearby poked his head out of his classroom. Brenda glared until he went back inside. Then she continued, "You think you get to relax? You think you've earned that?" I wasn't. She cut me off again. I'm sick of your laziness. You're not Sophia. You don't get to slip. She dragged me all the way outside and shoved me toward the car. When Robert came home that night, he didn't yell. He didn't ask what happened. He just introduced a new rule: no more closed doors. Brenda nodded immediately. Not even the bathroom. Sophia looked horrified. Mom, seriously? Do you want your brother hiding and wasting time again? Brenda said, if we allow privacy, he'll abuse it. Robert added, this is for his development. I didn't say anything. I knew arguing would make it worse. From then on, the house felt like a stage. If I wanted to change clothes, I had to go into a corner and hope nobody walked by. The bathroom rule lasted 3 days before Brenda realized she couldn't enforce it without inconveniencing herself, but the bedroom rule stayed. Mine had to remain open at all times. So, I found my own tiny ways to push back. During study sessions, I'd hide in the laundry room for a few minutes until Brenda started shouting my name. When she checked my homework, I scribbled nonsense equations in the margins to annoy her. When Robert barked his morning routine instructions, I ignored half of them and walked slower on purpose. It wasn't much, but it gave me the smallest feeling of control. Brenda noticed first. She stared at me more often during dinner, like she was trying to figure out what I was planning. You're getting sloppy again, she said one night. You're influencing Sophia. Sophia shook her head. He's not. Brenda cut her off. Don't defend him. You'll lose focus. Robert escalated things the next week. Without warning, he took my bedroom door off the hinges and carried it to the garage. You don't use this responsibly, he said. You don't get to have it. I looked at Sophia. She mouthed, I'm sorry. A few days later, Brenda canceled my birthday. We're not celebrating, she said. Failures don't deserve celebrations. I wasn't surprised. I didn't expect cake or presents. I just wanted a quiet day. Instead, she made me redo old worksheets for hours while Sophia sat in her room, trying not to cry loud enough for anyone to hear. That night, Sophia came into my doorway, since I didn't have a door anymore, and sat on the floor. You should stop pushing them, she whispered. They're getting worse. I'm not pushing anything, I said. I know, she said. But they think you are. She gave me another granola bar. She always tried to help in small ways. When she stood up, she said, just try not to make them angry. I didn't have the energy to promise anything. Later that night, while I pretended to sleep, I heard Robert and Brenda talking quietly in the hallway. He's slipping further, Robert said. If this continues, he's going to ruin everything we built. Brenda replied, we can't let him. Sophia is too important. That was the moment I understood something new. They didn't see me as a child. They saw me as a liability. And once a family starts seeing you that way, the cracks aren't cracks anymore. They're fractures waiting to break wide open. December in our town always hit hard. The kind of cold that sinks through your jacket and settles in your bones. Houses on our street had lights and decorations up, but ours didn't. Brenda never bothered unless she needed holiday photos to send to relatives. A few days before Christmas, the only light in our house came from the kitchen and the study room where Sophia sat reviewing flashcards for the 100th time. That afternoon, the phone rang. I was upstairs, pretending to study, when Brenda answered. Her voice shifted instantly. Yes, this is his mother. I see, an F. I froze. She called Robert immediately. He came home early. The school counselor had reached out about my declining performance, missing assignments, and an F on a history test. The counselor recommended a supportive environment at home. Brenda took that as an insult. A supportive environment, she repeated, seething. We do everything for him. Everything. When she hung up, she stormed into my room. Get downstairs, she said. Now. Robert was already waiting in the dining room, arms folded. Sophia sat at the far end of the table, trying to disappear. The school called, Robert said. You finally hit rock bottom. Brenda slammed the phone on the table. Do you realize what this looks like? Do you understand how humiliating this is? I tried. No, you didn't, she snapped. You embarrass us every time someone looks at your grades. They forced me into a correction session, which basically meant sitting in a chair while they unloaded 6 months of frustration on me. The session lasted 6 straight hours. No breaks, no water, just lectures, worksheets, punishment drills, and yelling. When I finally started crying out of pure exhaustion, Brenda snapped. "Oh, don't start that," she said. "Tears won't fix your stupidity." "I'm trying," I whispered. That was the moment she lost control. "Trying," she repeated, voice shaking. "Trying. You've done nothing but destroy everything we worked for." She slapped me across the face so hard my vision blurred. Sophia gasped. Brenda stepped closer, trembling with rage. "I wish you were never born." Robert didn't say a word. "You ruined my life," she continued. "If I had known you'd turn out like this, I would have ended the pregnancy." She struck me again and again. Not out of discipline this time, but out of pure, unadulterated anger. I didn't move. I just stared at the floor and let it happen. Robert finally stepped in, but not to stop her. He put a hand on her shoulder and said, "Calm down. He's not worth getting this upset over." Then he glared at me. "You hear what you're doing to your mother?" He said, "You can't even pass a test. You're dragging this entire family down." "I'm sorry," I whispered. "I don't need dead weight in my house," Robert said. "If you don't like the rules here, then leave. Take your useless brain with you." Sophia started crying quietly on the stairs. Brenda picked up my school bag from the floor and threw it at me. "Get out," she said. "Come back when you can bring value to the family name." The room went silent. I didn't argue. Something inside me just went empty. I picked up the bag, went upstairs, and packed a few clothes, a ratty hoodie, some socks. Nothing else felt like mine. Sophia stood in the hallway. "Ethan, don't," she whispered. I shook my head. "I don't have a choice." Downstairs, Robert and Brenda didn't even look up. I opened the front door, and the cold hit hard, but it still felt better than staying inside. When I reached the sidewalk, I turned back once. Sophia was at her bedroom window, hands pressed against the glass, crying so hard her shoulders shook. She mouthed the words slowly, clearly, "Don't leave me." For a second, I almost walked back. But then I remembered everything. Every slap, every insult, every punishment, every night I wished I could just disappear. I lowered my head and kept walking. I was 15 years old, alone and freezing. But for the first time in my life, the air felt like it actually belonged to me. The first night outside hit me harder than I expected. I walked until my legs hurt and ended up near a gas station on the edge of town. The wind cut straight through my hoodie. I sat behind the dumpster where it blocked some of the wind and pulled my knees to my chest. Cars passed, people laughed from inside warm vehicles, and Christmas lights blinked from the convenience store windows like they were teasing me. I felt invisible. Around midnight, a police cruiser rolled through the lot. I froze, hoping they wouldn't see me. The officer got out and walked toward the dumpster. "You all right, kid?" he asked. I nodded quickly. "Just waiting for a friend." He looked at my thin hoodie, then at the sky. "It's freezing. You got somewhere to go." "Yeah," I lied. "Just trying to warm up." He didn't look convinced, but he didn't push. "All right, don't hang around here too long." When he drove off, I let out a shaky breath. The last thing I wanted was being taken home. I'd rather freeze outside than go back to Robert and Brenda. I stayed behind the gas station until the sun came up, barely sleeping. My hands were stiff and I couldn't feel my toes. I knew I needed to find food and somewhere warm. After walking around town for a few hours, I saw a small local restaurant with steam fogging up the front windows. The sign said Marco's Grill in faded red letters. I stood in the doorway for a minute before pushing it open. Inside smelled like coffee and fried eggs. A man in his mid-40s looked up from behind the counter. He had tired eyes, a gray-streaked beard, and a kitchen apron covered in flour. "You lost?" he asked. "No," I said. I'm looking for work." "Anything?" He looked me over. My bag, my tired face, the way I was shivering. "How old are you?" 16, I lied too fast. He raised an eyebrow. "You don't look 16. "I am." He stared for a long second, but didn't argue. "You ever wash dishes?" "Yes," I lied again. He jerked his thumb toward the back. "Sinks that way. Try not to break anything." Just like that, I had a job. The kitchen was hot, loud, and cramped. My hands were numb at first, but the warm water helped. I scrubbed pans and plates while trying to stay upright. Marco walked in after a bit. "You were quiet," he said. "Is that bad?" "No," he replied. "Just rare." Around lunchtime, he pushed a plate toward me. "Eat this before you fall over." It was scrambled eggs and toast. I ate fast. Probably too fast, but he didn't comment. He just filled my water glass before going back to the counter. That night, he let me sit in the corner booth for an hour after closing. "Stay inside until I lock up," he said. "Cold's getting worse." He didn't ask where I was staying or why I wasn't in school. He just let me sit. After that first night, I learned fast how to stay invisible. I slept in sheltered corners behind the restaurant, in a laundromat for an hour if nobody noticed, in a stairwell if the door didn't latch. Anything that kept the wind off. I stopped going to school because I couldn't risk being forced back home, and I avoided my old neighborhood like it was radioactive. I kept my head down, worked, and made myself small. It wasn't a plan. It was survival. Over the next few days, Marco became something like a quiet anchor, not a friend, not a parental figure, just someone who treated me like a human being instead of a project or a disappointment. He let me eat leftovers, told me when I was washing dishes wrong, and occasionally said things like, "Show up on time tomorrow," which somehow felt like encouragement. One afternoon, while cleaning a stack of heavy pans, my vision went blurry. I tried to steady myself, but everything tilted, and I collapsed against the counter. When I came to, I was lying on the floor with Marco kneeling beside me. "You're burning up," he said. "When's the last time you slept?" "I'm fine," I muttered. "No, you're not," he said. "Sit down. I'll get you water." He brought a small bottle and a plate with bread. "Eat," he said. "You can't work like this." "I need the money." "You'll get it," he replied. But your nose collapsed on the floor. He disappeared into the office and came back with a few bills. "Advance," he said. "Buy warm socks or something." I stared at the money. "I'll pay it back." He shrugged. Didn't ask. He didn't make speeches or talk about responsibility. He didn't ask about my family. He didn't try to understand everything. He saw a kid trying not to fall apart and just helped enough to keep me standing. People sometimes ask why I didn't go to the police. The truth is simple. I didn't want to be sent back. I didn't think anyone would believe me. I didn't want a case or an investigation. I just wanted distance. Brenda and Robert never called, never searched, never asked anyone about me. It was like they assumed I'd return when I learned my lesson. They couldn't risk police or social services asking questions about bruises and what went on in that house. Reporting me would have meant outsiders looking too closely. So, they did what they always did, protected their image, and waited for me to crawl back. But I didn't go back. And with each day at the restaurant, each shift that didn't end in punishment, each meal Marco slid across the counter without commentary, I realized something. I could survive. Working at Marco's Grill became my foundation without me realizing it. I stayed there almost 3 years, showing up before sunrise and leaving after closing. I washed dishes until my fingers wrinkled, wiped counters until they shined, and learned to keep pace with a busy kitchen. Marco never praised me, never lectured me, never played father figure. He just expected me to work. And for once in my life, the expectations felt clear and fair. After saving enough, I moved on to other jobs. Warehouse shifts, retail, phone sales, delivery routes. I took whatever paid and never complained because I had nothing to fall back on. I ate cheap meals, shared cramped rooms, and learned how to talk to people because my income depended on it. Everything I knew about discipline and persistence came from surviving, not from anything Robert or Brenda claimed to teach me. By 25, I had enough experience to start something of my own. I opened a small sales support company. It wasn't glamorous. My office was inside an old building with flickering lights and a window that didn't fully close. Clients were inconsistent. Some paid late, some never paid at all. But things slowly picked up. By 27, I had steady accounts and a small team. It wasn't wealth, but it was stability. Something I never grew up with. I thought my past was behind me. Then Sophia found me. It happened on a rainy weekday afternoon. I was sorting invoices halfway through a cold coffee when my phone buzzed with an unknown number. Normally, I ignored those, but something pushed me to answer. A quiet voice said, "Ethan." I froze. My chest tightened. "Who is this?" It's Sophia." I stood up automatically, like my body reacted before my brain did. "Sophia, how? Where?" "I'm in town," she whispered. "I just need to see you, please." We agreed to meet behind Marco's grill after he closed. I walked there early, pacing behind the alley like some nervous teenager again. I hadn't seen Sophia since the night I left. In my head, she was still the crying girl at the window. But when she stepped out from the shadows, she looked nothing like the girl I remembered. She was 28 now. Her posture was stiff, her coat buttoned high like armor. She wore glasses, and her eyes looked exhausted, the kind of tiredness you don't sleep off. Her hair was neatly pulled back, but her hands kept fidgeting with the strap of her bag. When she saw me, she stopped walking. "It's really you," she said. "It's really you," I replied. We stood there awkwardly. 12 years of silence doesn't disappear in a minute. "You look good," she said quietly. "You too," I said, even though she looked like someone carrying a lifetime of weight. She hugged her arms to her chest. "I can't stay long. They think I'm studying with classmates." "You're still living with them?" I asked. She nodded. "They said moving out would ruin my focus. I'm in medical school now." That had been her path since she could walk. "They never let me forget that you left," she continued. "They say you abandoned the family. They say you'll regret it when your life falls apart." I didn't respond. I just let her talk. "I tried to find you," she said. "But they blocked everything. They even checked my phone sometimes. If I asked about you, they got suspicious." I swallowed. "I'm sorry." "Don't be," she said quickly. "I understood why you left. I envied you for it." Hearing that hit harder than anything I'd prepared for. She stepped a little closer. "I wanted to warn you. They know about your business." My stomach tightened. "How?" "A neighbor mentioned it. Mom said your rebellious phase must be over. Dad said you finally realized their discipline worked. They're planning to reach out," she said. "They think bringing you back into the family will make them look good." "Of course," I muttered. Sophia looked up at me, eyes watery. "I'm scared for you. They're not coming to apologize. They're coming to claim credit." We stayed silent again. Her breath came out in small white clouds. "You could leave," I said. "You're an adult." She shook her head. "I don't have it in me. Not like you." I stayed too long. She reached into her coat and pulled out a folded piece of paper. "I kept this. I don't know why. I wrote it the night you left." She placed it in my hand gently. "I should go," she whispered. "If they find out I'm gone this late." I nodded. "Be careful." She managed a small, sad smile. "I'm glad you made it out. Even if I didn't." Then she turned and walked away quickly, disappearing around the corner. Later that night in my office, I opened the note. "I'm sorry. I wish I could go with you." 12 years later, she was still trapped. 12 years later, they still had power over her. 12 years later, they were finally coming for me. And for the first time in a long time, I felt something close to fear. But I also realized something else. I had survived. I had built something. And I wasn't that 15-year-old kid anymore. My business was finally steady when the first message came. I saw the notification late at night while checking my email and the social alerts tied to my business. The name almost didn't register at first. "Brenda Davies. We miss you. We hope you're well. Your father and I are proud of how you turned out." I stared at it for a few seconds, then put my phone face down and kept working. No reaction, no emotion. I wasn't 15 anymore. I didn't flinch at her name or her voice in my head. I just didn't care. The next morning, 3 more messages. "Let's reconnect. Family is important. It's time to come home." I deleted all of them. 2 days later, the tone changed. "You owe us a conversation. After everything we sacrificed, this is how you thank us. Sophia is worried about you." That last one made me pause. Sophia never used guilt, so I knew they were using her name. I texted her a simple message. "Did you tell them to contact me?" She replied almost instantly, "No, they found your business page. I warned you they would." After that, the flood started. Robert followed every public account I had. Brenda commented on old photos like we were close. Handsome son, so proud of you. Call us soon. My employees thought it was some confused older woman. I didn't bother explaining. But then things escalated. Because when manipulation doesn't work, controlling people get desperate. A few days later, one of my employees walked into my office looking uncomfortable. Some older guy came in asking for you, he said. Said he was your father. I felt something tighten in my shoulders. Not fear, just irritation. What did he want? He tried walking to the back offices. I told him he needed an appointment. He got mad. Of course he did. The next morning, he returned. I was in the lobby reviewing reports when he walked in like he owned the building. Same stiff posture, same cold eyes. But this time, I didn't shrink. Ethan, he said, like it was a command. I didn't move. You don't have permission to be here. He tried to smile, but it came out stiff. We need to talk. You've ignored your mother's messages. I'm busy. He stepped closer. This business exists because of us. Because of the discipline we gave you. You should show some gratitude. I closed the folder in my hands. You didn't teach me discipline. You taught me survival. He blinked. That wasn't the response he expected. You think you built this on your own? He asked. Yes, I said. Because I started from nothing. His jaw tightened. Your mother is stressed because you refuse to acknowledge us. She's sick over this. Not my problem. He scoffed. You're still the same ungrateful. I stood up slowly. He stopped talking. I wasn't the small kid he used to tower over. I had a few inches and a solid amount of muscle on him now. For the first time, he looked unsure of himself. You don't get to walk into my business, I said calmly. You don't get to claim my success, and you don't get to talk to me like I'm a child. He opened his mouth, but I cut him off. You're done here. Leave. He tried glaring, but it didn't land the way he wanted. After a few seconds, he turned and walked out without saying another word. That night, Brenda called me. Not a message this time, an actual call. I answered because I wanted to hear what angle she'd use. Her voice came out shaking. How dare you speak to your father like that? Like what? You humiliated him. Good. She went silent for a moment, then tried the emotional route. We just want our family back. We want to celebrate how successful you are now. Her voice cracked into a half sob. You were such a difficult child, but look what you became. Doesn't that mean our methods worked? No, I said. It means I escaped. Her breathing got louder. She switched tactics. You abandoned us. Do you understand what that did to Sophia? Do you understand the pain you put this family through? I understand exactly what you put me through. You ungrateful, I hung up. 5 minutes later, Sophia texted me. Don't talk to them. They're spiraling. They think they can force you to come back. Force me? I replied. They're planning something. A big family reconciliation dinner. They already told relatives you're coming home. They want to take pictures with you. It was never about reconnecting. It was about publicity. Sophia sent another message. Please don't go. They'll twist everything. I answered. I'm not going anywhere near that house. Over the next few days, Robert and Brenda escalated again. Emails, voice notes, accusations, fake apologies, even a formal letter asking me to restore the Davies legacy by partnering my business with the family name. Then came the last straw. They showed up outside my office building again, waiting near the entrance like they could corner me. That's when I decided to end it on my terms. I sent them a message. If you want to talk, meet me tomorrow. Neutral place, no surprises. I chose a public cafe near downtown. Neutral territory. No chance of them trying anything dramatic. They arrived together, sitting upright like they were attending a job interview. Brenda wore the same polite smile she used on her students. Robert looked like he thought this was some negotiation. I didn't sit down right away. I stood at the edge of the table. This is the last time we're doing this, I said. Brenda reached for my hand. I pulled it back. We just want our son. You don't have one, I said. Not anymore. Robert's jaw clenched. Watch your tone. No, I said. You don't get to tell me that. They waited for me to soften. I didn't. You want the truth? I said. You don't miss me. You miss the idea of me. You miss how I made you look. You miss the story you could tell other people. Brenda whispered, we did our best. Your best almost killed me. Robert leaned forward. You owe this family something. I owe you nothing, I said. Not a conversation, not a holiday, not a legacy, nothing. Brenda's face twisted. You're cruel. No, I said. I'm free. And I stood up and walked away without waiting for a reply. That night, Sophia messaged me again. Did it go okay? I said what I needed to say, I replied. After a minute, she wrote back. I'm proud of you. Really? I texted her. When you're ready to leave, I'll help you anytime. I locked my office that night, feeling something I'd never felt growing up. Peace. 2 winters passed after that final meeting. I never heard from Robert or Brenda again. No messages, no calls, nothing. They'd finally learned I wasn't a kid they could corner. Sophia and I stayed in touch quietly. She was still finishing her medical program and trying to survive the house we grew up in. I never pushed her. Just reminded her she wasn't alone. Near the end of her last year, she called me. Her voice steadier than I'd ever heard. I'm moving out, she said. I'm done letting them run my life. When she asked for help packing, I said yes. That weekend, we loaded her things into a small van. She kept looking at the house like it had finally shrunk to its real size. When we finished, she hugged me. You got out and kept going, she whispered. That made it easier for me to believe I could, too. Marco showed up as we unloaded her things, handed her warm food, and said, starting fresh is easier on a full stomach. It was simple, but it grounded both of us. After that, life felt steadier. Not perfect, just real. My business grew. Sophia built a routine, and sometimes the 3 of us had dinner together. Robert and Brenda told relatives we were independent now, rewriting the story again. But it didn't matter. Their version of reality no longer touched mine. Every Christmas since I left at 15, I avoided decorations. But last year, Sophia brought me a small silver star. It doesn't have to mean anything bad anymore, she said. I put it on the shelf beside my first business invoice and the spare key to Marco's restaurant. Seeing those 3 things together felt strange at first. Then it felt right. Sophia left with a promise to visit again. Later, Marco texted asking if I needed help shoveling. I said no, and he showed up anyway. For the first time in my life, the future didn't feel like something to escape. It felt like something I could walk into with both hands open. This story was a long time coming for me. Have you ever had to cut ties with family who just couldn't see you for who you truly are? Or maybe you're still in the middle of that fight. Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. I'm reading every single one.